What is up, everybody? Matt Moda here, ready to dive into the NFL season. So what I'm going to be doing over the summer is I'm just going to be recording and posting periodically a bunch of NFL-specific videos. So it's always smart to take a step back of the MLB and the WNBA season, dive into the NFL, which is what we're going to be doing for this summer. With this specific video, going to be diving into 3 mainline bets that I've already locked in for the NFL season. Further in the summer, you're going to see a play on underdogs, like best upset picks I have for week 1. Probably going to do a survivor video, all that stuff. And then as we get closer to the actual date of the games starting, I'm going to be doing player props as well. But one thing that I didn't do every single week, but one thing that I generally like to do for the NFL is I wake up Monday morning and I immediately identify lines that I like for the following week, giving you 3 early bets that I've already locked in. So that's what I'm going to be doing now. 3 plays that I've already locked in. In terms of my results from last year, because obviously it's very important to do a recap, it was fine, up over 5 units on our early bets last year. A couple differences that I'm going to be doing this year than if you followed me last year is I'm just going to put all my results on one graphic. So my early bets, my underdogs, my player props, all that stuff, you're just going to see on one graphic as opposed to separating them out. And then all I tracked last year was units won or lost. This year, I'm going to be doing total record, like what's our total record. And then I'm also going to be tracking ROI as well. So it's not just going to be total units like you see on the screen here. Again, underdogs, we were down. Mainline plays, we were slightly up. And then player props, as always, was our best. Hoping to have a better year this year. Let's hope that starts with this video and these picks. Play number 1, I am taking the Chiefs minus 2.5 against the Ravens. You can get that at minus 120 odds at Caesars. So this is going to be the the opening game for the season, right? This is a Thursday night game. It's an AFC Championship rematch. The Chiefs, obviously coming off of the Super Bowl win, hosting the Ravens, who they beat in the AFC Championship game last year. And the Ravens are definitely a team that I want to fade this season, at least at the beginning of the year. I don't think that they are going to be nearly as good as they were last year. And if they end the year as good as they were last year, I think it's going to take some growing pains. I think they're going to start a little bit slow. Now, don't get me wrong. They were awesome last year. I'm not taking away anything from their season last year. They were really good both on offense and on defense. But their defense is what I want to pinpoint here. And the defense is a unit that I see taking a step back from last year. It's hard to be better or even as good as they were last year when they literally had the best defense in the entire NFL. According to DVOA, they had the #1 defense. Because their defense was so good, you're going to lose some pieces the year after, and that's exactly what happened to the Ravens. Not only did they lose some players on that defense, but most importantly, they lost their defensive coordinator. Mike McDonald was hired away, became the head coach of the Seahawks, and it really is truly remarkable to think of how good the defense was for the Ravens last year. They led the league in sacks. They led the league in takeaways. They had the fewest points allowed. Again, they were #1 in total DVOA. So even if they had kept Mike McDonald, regression was probably going to come because it's hard to repeat those numbers year over year. And now when you add in the fact that they did lose their defensive coordinator and they're replacing him with a 32-year-old Zach Orr who's never been a coordinator at the NFL level before, I think that they are primed to take a step back. And maybe Orr is incredible. I don't think it's realistic to expect them to be incredible right off the bat. I think there are going to be some growing pains. So that's kind of a reason why I like the Chiefs in this one. Now, to be clear, this is not me telling you that their defense is going to be terrible or that the Ravens are going to be terrible. I feel like you make one pick and then people make sweeping judgments based off that pick. The defense still has talent, yes, but I just think they're not going to be as good as last year. And then on the other side of the ball, their offense, maybe I'm putting too much emphasis on the AFC Championship game, and I shouldn't do that. But I just do not trust this Ravens offense against this Chiefs defense at all. They completely wet themselves in that game against the Chiefs. They completely abandoned everything that worked for them in the regular season. They just abandoned the run game, despite the fact that the most points they were down was 10 points. Like, you can still run the ball if you're down by 10 points in the first half and in the third quarter. And then Lamar, because the fact that they couldn't get anything going because they weren't running the ball, ended up being too aggressive and he threw some interceptions. And they really just struggled to do anything on offense. And the Chiefs defense was awesome last year. They're young. They should also be awesome this year. The key difference is that they retained their defensive coordinator, and they have a lot of young players that you can expect to take a step forward. So they should at least be as good as they were last year. And they also have the possibility of being even better than they were last year. I also have major concerns about the Ravens offensive line. They're going to have to replace 3 starters from last year's team. Now they have bodies capable of doing so. So again, even if they end the year with a good offensive line, it's a tough ask replacing 3 starters. So some growing pains are to be expected among the offensive line for the Ravens as well. And then you want to look at the Chiefs offense. You know, it's kind of funny. The Chiefs offense, we remember, even though they won the Super Bowl, we remember them having a brutal offense that really couldn't move the ball. That was a chore to watch. And that's kind of true. They still had the 8th best offense according to DVOA in the NFL. And I believe that the Chiefs offense is going to be better this year than they were last year as well. I think we're going to look at last year, even though it's crazy to say this because they won the Super Bowl, but their offense was not good. I mean, not good for the Chiefs standards. And I think that's going to end up being a one-year blip. We have enough history of success with Patrick Mahomes, with Andy Reid, to believe that the Chiefs offense is going to be better next year than they were this year. They got a good offensive line. They have a good running game with Pacheco. We will need to see what happens at receiver. Obviously, Rashee Rice being possibly suspended is going to hurt them. But they have a rookie that could make some noise. Hollywood Brown, we'll see if he has anything left in the tank. And then, of course, they still have Travis Kelce. And then, yeah, the Chiefs won the Super Bowl last year, and they still have Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. So I'll trust them to be able to win this game by a field goal or more. That's our first play. Next up, I am taking the Patriots plus 9.5 against the Bengals, minus 110 odds at Bet365. Now, this one is probably going to feel scary. Telling people to back the Chiefs is not a tough sell. Telling people to back the Patriots might be a tough sell. But I just don't think that the Bengals should be getting the respect of 10 points in week 1. I think we're forgetting, like we're basically just taking away all of last season because Burrow was hurt. But Burrow, in the games that he played, wasn't the same Joe Burrow. Now, I know we had the calf injury to begin the year, but there always seems to be something with the Bengals to begin the year, right? And we don't know what Burrow's going to look like. We don't know how healthy he is with the wrist injury. It's probably going to be good. He might be a little bit rusty. And the Bengals have started slow each of the last 2 seasons. So there are reasons to believe that they could start slow again this year. Last year, again, he was nursing the calf injury, but they started 1-3. In 2 of the games that they lost, they legitimately only scored 3 points. They scored 3 points in the season opener against the Browns. And then in week 4, coming off of their first win of the year, so their first win came in week 3, they followed that up getting routed 27-3 to the Titans. That was last year. They started 1-3. The year before, in 2022, the year after they went to the Super Bowl, we saw something similar. The Bengals started 0-2. They lost to the Steelers in week 1. They lost to the Cowboys in week 2. Now, losing to the Cowboys doesn't sound bad. That was the Cowboys without Dak Prescott. In the loss to the Steelers, they had 5 turnovers. Burrow had 4 interceptions. And then against the Cowboys, Burrow threw for less than 200 yards. So I'm not sitting here saying that the Bengals are going to lose outright or anything like that. I just don't necessarily think they should be getting 10 points. It's just a little too rich for my blood for backing a Bengals team that has struggled out of the gate each of the last 2 years. And they lost some talent on their defense that was already not a good defense last year. And they also lost their offensive coordinator. Now, I know their head coach is the one that does everything on offense, right? Like he's the main guy. But still, losing their offensive coordinator is important. We've seen offensive head coaches lose coordinators in the past and have a dramatic effect on the offense. So we don't know if that's going to be the case with this one. I generally get concerned when teams are replacing coordinators when they've been such a successful unit. And also the Patriots, they were terrible last year. So it's only natural that they're slightly better than they were last year. And also for the first time in 2 decades, we get to see a Patriots team without Bill Belichick as the head coach. That's going to be weird. But I actually think the Patriots are going to be better than people expect this year. Now, I'm not saying that they're going to go to the playoffs. I'm not saying that they're going to win this game outright, but I like Drake May. I like a lot of the pieces that they have on defense. They should have a really good defense. I think Gerard Mayo can be a good head coach. We've seen players like him, D'Amico Ryans, be a good head coach in the past. And for week 1, all I'm expecting is that the Patriots put up a respectable showing, not lose this game by double digits. Again, don't hear what I'm not saying. Don't listen to this and think that I'm taking the Patriots to win, the Patriots to make the playoffs, the Bengals to be terrible. I'm just taking the Patriots to cover a massive spread in week 1 when wonky stuff always happens. So let's hope that does. end up happening, we cash out this bad boy. And then our third and final pick of the video, taking the Rams plus 3.5. This is at -110 odds at BetMGM. Now, this is a game that you can look a lot into last year to kind of do your analysis of. A lot of these teams, I mean, not a lot of these teams, both of these teams look pretty similar to what they were last year. And this is also a rematch of a playoff game last year where the Lions won by exactly 1 point. That ended up being a pretty wild football game. The Lions won that game by 1 point. It was their first playoff game in forever. And of course, their first playoff game in forever had to be against their former quarterback in Matthew Stafford. The scriptwriters, they got that one down perfectly. That game was really close. And the reality is, I think this game is going to be really close as well. Now, I'm not saying that just because, like, oh, this year's game, last year's game was a 1 point game. This year's game is also going to be a 1 point game. I just think that both of these teams are closely evenly matched. The Lions are definitely better, but I don't think that they're necessarily 3.5 points better. And we could get a situation where the Rams lose by a field goal and this bet still wins, which is the whole reason that we're taking it. We're not taking the Rams money line. We're not taking the Rams plus 2.5. We're taking them to cover 3.5, and that field goal is obviously a huge deal. That's a very key number. So the second play here, where I'm not sitting here telling you that the Rams are going to be the Super Bowl like they were a couple years ago, that the Lions are going to be terrible. I just think that this game is going to be close. Now, the Lions offense, absolutely loaded, and them bringing back Ben Johnson is a really big deal. I do put a lot of emphasis on that. But when you look at how their season ended, I don't necessarily think it's crazy to believe that they're going to have a little bit of a slow start to the season after how their season ended. For those of you that forgot, NFC Championship game, they had the 49ers on the ropes. Eminem was there, excited, 17-point lead, but they blew it, dropped passes, fourth down, non-conversions, a really horrible defense caused them to blow that lead. And losses like that can be tough to recover from. Just look at the Atlanta Falcons. Granted, that was in the Super Bowl, and they lost their offensive coordinator, so I'm not saying it's the exact same thing. But just that offense, again, losses like that can be tough to come back from. And even if the Lions have another really good year, which is probably the most likely scenario, I still think that they could come out slow in week 1. And I also think that the Rams are likely to have another playoff year like they had last year. Now, they're a couple years removed from not having any draft picks, so they've finally been able to draft and develop young talent. And I think they've done a really good job on the margins, filling out their roster despite not having all those draft picks. And especially on the defensive end of the ball, like, you're not going to look at their roster on defense and think they have a ton of talent. Their defense was respectable last year. They got better as the season went on. Now, they did lose Aaron Donald, who turns out is a very good player, and they did lose their defensive coordinator. But unlike the Ravens, they're replacing him with someone experienced. Brandon Staley literally was the defensive coordinator of the Rams back in 2020 when they had the third best defense in the NFL, according to DVOA. I think Brandon Staley is a moron. I think he's got crap for brains. I don't think he's a good head coach. I think that he's a phenomenal defensive coordinator, and his history showed that. So while the Rams probably won't be the third best defense in the NFL, I think there are reasons to believe that they're going to be a respectable defense. And then the Rams had the 7th best offense last year, according to DVOA. That was with Stafford missing a couple games and having gross quarterback play in the games that he missed. And the reality is, Sean McVay plus Matthew Stafford, that should be a recipe for a pretty good offense. And I think they're going to be able to move the ball against a Lions defense that was terrible last year, was terrible to end the year. So again, I think this game is going to be close. I don't think that the Rams are going to win straight up. I think they'll cover 3.5. And that's all we got. 3 early bangers for you guys to lock in for the NFL season. Incredibly excited for football season to start. I'm ready for it. Let's hope that we can get some of these to cash when the season does start. But make sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel to get all my NFL videos when they drop. And then the last thing that I'll mention is that I do have a Dub Club where I send all of my plays out. $5 a month gets you everything that I play on YouTube and on Twitter. Everything you see me give out for free, I first put out on Dub Club. $5 a month gets you that, gets sent directly to your phone. So if you're interested, check that out in the description of the video as well as the pinned comment. And that's all we got. Appreciate everybody for watching, and have a good one.